How's it
What's
going?
up, everyone? Welcome
Back
back.
at
How's
it.
it going, Zach?
Doing good, doing good. Coming at you guys from on the road. Hopefully everything sounds okay, looks okay. But yeah, super excited to be back in the saddle from good old Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah, glad you were able to find the time and the space to go live today, Zach. Really excited to be back. Got some juicy drama to talk about, plus some other stories and anything else you guys feel like talking about. But yeah, it's a nice kind of foggy afternoon here in Kansas City. What's the weather like in Kentucky?
Bro, it's absolutely fucking gorgeous here. I don't know how the fucking skies parted, and the second that we drove in, like the rain stopped. It's like 73 degrees outside, sunny. Feeling good, man. Feeling good. It really does. We were having the conversation about whether or not Louisville was technically in the South. I've always just kind of considered it like a fixture of the South. You know, you've got the Kentucky Derby, you've got the big hats, you've got the bourbon. But a lot of people consider it more of the Midwest. Today, when you go outside, the humidity level, the smell of rain, you're like, I'm in the South, bro. This is the South.
Oh yeah, I think Kentucky is definitely a southern state. It has a Appalachian vibe to it, I think, but it's for sure in the South, in my
Oh,
opinion, at least.
especially culturally. Like, I've eaten so many like fucking biscuits and things here just since driving through. Just that sort of thing. You see the change in cuisine really reflects the South. I don't know. I think Louisville is an underrated town in this country. It's absolutely a blast here. Obviously, the bourbon is delicious, but just the architecture, the houses, all that kind of stuff. I feel like where we live in Kansas City, I got a lot of love for it, but the architecture in some of the parts of the South really kind of put us to shame. There is just a lot of really old buildings, old houses that have been kept up, and it's the row house style that you don't really see anymore in Kansas City in the Midwest. I don't know, just a lot of love for this little town. Always happy to pass through.
Oh yeah, I totally agree about the architecture in the South. We were talking on the show the other day about our hatred of modern day architecture, how bland and corporate it looks. And I brought up that one of the reasons why I loved being in New Orleans so much was because of the architecture. And the same thing really does apply throughout the South. You have a lot more of that old school vibes. Um, and I personally love it. You know, whether you're in Jackson, Mississippi, or New Orleans or Louisville, yeah, you get that character that you just don't get as much of in the Midwest architecturally.
Yeah, absolutely. But before we get carried away, just describing our love for the architecture of different geographic regions in the United States, because I also love the architecture in the Northeast and in the Southwest, guys. Depending on where you go in this country, that's like one of the coolest things, and really where you go everywhere. Just the change in aesthetic, the change in the exterior of everything is always really fun to experience. But this is a Vanguard live stream, and every Vanguard live stream has to begin and end with a massive shout out to the patron community. Today, you're keeping the lights on for Gavin at the Casa del Vanguard over there. We really appreciate you guys. Of course, you're all comrades in our hearts, but we like to begin and end with a special shout out to you lovely fuckers that keep our bills paid over on Patreon.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for the support. The link's in the description. That's always where you're going to find our Patreon link. Hit that up if you guys enjoy the show and want to keep us afloat. It really truly helps out. Even just $5 a month goes a long way. We wouldn't be able to do the show without the support of our Patreon community. So if you want your own name up there on the shout out screen, hit up that link. It's a great way to help us out. Another great way to help us out is by hitting that like button. It's 100% for free. So if you're wanting to support us but don't have the means to financially, we totally understand. All that we ask is that you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and hit that notification bell while you're at it so you don't miss our next live stream. But yeah, with all that said, is there anything you wanted to start off by chatting about, Zach? I guess we can answer a couple of these super chats to begin.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's just go ahead and start there. I guess we could start with old friend of the show. Good to see you back in the chat, Addy the Bug Catcher. How you doing? Nice to catch you live. It's been a while. Yeah, great to catch you as well, Addy.
Yeah, what's up, Adi? Thanks so much for the super chat, man. It's great to hear from you. Glad you're able to tune in on this Thursday afternoon. I hope you're doing well, Adi.
Awesome. Hold on 1 second for me. I think there's somebody at the door at the Airbnb.
Oh, no problem. Sounds like a horror movie premise. There's a knock at the door at the Airbnb. Who could it be? I wonder. Have any of you guys seen the movie Barbarian? check out Barbarian if you have not, if you want to see a good horror movie that starts off at an Airbnb. But someone in the chat just said that Kyle Kalinske has hit 1 million subs on YouTube.
There's been plenty of people who said, I didn't like it at first.
All right, Gavin, do you want to hear something really wild?
All of you.
Oh,
And
what?
You learn to
So the
appreciate.
guy from my Airbnb just came and told me that we're actually supposed to check out at 11. So I've got to call Mariah, and I will call back into the show from my phone really quickly because I had no idea that happened. We were supposed to stay here for 2 nights. This is absolutely insane. Holy shit.
Interesting. All right. So should I just kind of take the reins?
Yeah, take the wheel. Gavin takes the wheel. I'll call back into the show in a moment.
Okay, cool.
All right.
LOL. Well, I guess it's just gonna be me and you guys for a little bit. Zach is apparently getting evicted from his Airbnb. Oops. Anyway, Kyle Kalinske apparently just hit 1 million subs. He's doing his 1 million sub live stream, but when he started out, he was still at 999K, and I guess now he's just hit 1 million. So let's listen to what he's chatting about.
To grab the newspaper or whatever, butt ass naked, and nobody cares because the nearest house is like 300 yards away behind trees. I think that's glorious. So anyway, I like country living the best. So I haven't really put much thought behind. I know a lot of lefties are big on like, we need walkable cities. We need to totally change our infrastructure in terms of, not being so reliant on cars, etc. I just say I'm agnostic on that overall. For people who live in city, the city should have much better public transit. I think there's no doubt about that.
I guess I thought he'd be, talking more about his actual, the fact that he actually hit 1 million. They might have already reacted to that and moved on. But yeah, I guess it's just going to be me for a little bit. This is awkward. Usually I am not a big fan of recording alone. So hopefully Zach is back soon. But in the meantime, we do have one more super chat to react to. Thanks again, Adi. Really appreciate seeing you back in the chat. I missed you, man. And thank you so much also, Tony, for the $4.99. I agree with Gavin that everything everywhere all at once. I'm guessing that's what you're referencing. Everything everywhere OA. I think you probably mean Everything Everywhere All at Once, which won Best Picture recently at the Academy Awards. And yeah, I enjoyed the movie. Don't get me wrong. It's a really well-made film. It's a really ambitious movie. And I think it's cool that A24 is getting so much like mainstream recognition with the Academy Award wins and stuff like that. But yeah, it's not the best movie of last year. I'm sorry, but it's just not the best movie of last year. In my opinion, there were much better films that were nominated for the Academy Award, films like Tar and even Triangle of Sadness I really preferred. But yeah, thank you, Tony. Really appreciate that. Again, I'm guessing that I'm guessing that's what you're referring to. And sorry, I know a lot of people love that movie. I know a lot of people love that movie. I feel like a dick when I bash on it. I don't even hate it. I really don't. It's perfectly well done, but I don't know. I just had some issues with it. I thought that it wasn't nearly as emotional as some people made it out to be. Also, shout out to you, Squisher King. Isn't Monsters Inc. a fucking banger? That movie's so good. Easily the best Pixar movie. I wonder what Kyle's talking about, because I did want to wait till Zach is back to talk about the Anna Kasparian drama. Hopefully Zach will be back soon, because I know he wants to talk about that too. But and yeah, Tar's the movie about the orchestral composer and conductor. She's like a maestro, a modern maestro, Lydia Tarr, played by Kate Blanchett, and she gets accused by a protege, essentially, of sexual impropriety. Great movie though. Kate Blanchett is fantastic. And yeah, Monsters Inc. is 100% like it has an anti-capitalist, anti-fossil fuel message. There's no denying that. Yes, Christina, I am glad that Brendan Fraser won. I love Darren Aronofsky, and to be honest, The Whale is probably not one of his best movies, but Brendan Fraser is undeniably fantastic in the film. He's undeniably fantastic in the film. So I am glad that he won. And also he just deserves it. I mean, the dude got such a short end of the stick. in Hollywood. But yeah, hopefully Zach is back soon. Let's check out what Kyle's talking about.
His toys, and apparently one of the things he did is he went to the bathroom and he started deep throating the fucking spring. The thing popped out, he swallowed it, and then he was throwing up for the next day and a half, 2 days. I was like, Crystal, we got to take him to the vet. Like, he could be really sick or something. So we went to the vet. They just gave him some anti-nausea medication, told me he's probably good, but if there's still an issue, come back, we'll do blood work, x-rays, whatever. We could do him now, but you probably good, like you're good. I gave him the anti-nausea medication. If he throws up again on this medication, he's in trouble, bring him in. So I bring him home, he throws up again. I'm like, oh my God, I thought he might have had cancer or some serious issue. We bring him back in.
All right. Still not talking about anything interesting. I'm hoping that Kyle gets asked a kind of juicy question, something about like Cenk Uygur or Jimmy Dore or something dramatic like that. So if you guys hear Kyle like talking about something that's spicy, please let me know and I'll react to it on the show, because I was hoping, usually whenever Kyle does one of these Q&As, someone ends up asking him something kind of spicy and he ends up kind of having to talk about like, his falling out with Jimmy Dore or something that would make for good content to react to. So if anyone hears him talking about anything that, seems up our alley, let us know. But shout out to you, Mariposa. My classical music colleagues didn't care for Tar. Interesting. Do you know why, Mariposa? Do you know why? Because I thought it was a really excellent and interesting insight into the world of classical music. That's one of my favorite things about that movie. I love when a movie takes place in a completely niche world that most of us have no insight into. So like I like classical music, but I don't know a lot about it. And I definitely don't spend any time within communities of people that like know a lot about or really care about the modern classical music scene. So for me, Tar was a really interesting insight into that world and all the kind of politics of that world. I really appreciate that. Another movie that does a similar thing is the movie Black Swan with the ballet scene. I know nothing about ballet. I know nothing about the ballet scene, but if you watch Black Swan, you get a lot of insight into what it's like behind the scenes. So I felt the same way about Tar. Really interesting. Like I said, I love when a movie that has kind of a universal storyline or touches on universal themes, like in this case, cancel culture and accusations. But it's set within this niche that, normies like myself know nothing about. It just makes for an interesting experience. And shout out to you once again. The conducting, it has to be convincing, interesting. I mean, like I said, as someone who has no experience in that world, it seemed pretty convincing to me. But I guess if you're a conductor yourself, then maybe you would look at that and say, oh, that's not convincing. She wouldn't wave her hands nearly as much as she did in the film. Something along those lines. But yeah, shout out to you, Mariposa. Thanks for chiming in. And yeah, Tyler, I'm glad you agree. It was a interesting film.
Kyle steered me away from the alt-right pipeline and towards Big Seltzer. Thanks to all that shilling. Thank you very much, buddy. Appreciate that. Love you, Kyle. Pac-Man on KKF when. Also, you should do more chats with Vosh. Love your convos. Thank you very much. I always find it interesting. Look, oftentimes you get the sense that like, oh my God, the people who do anything left of center, right? Just like some left of center commentary. Everybody gets a sense like everybody hates everybody, despises everybody. There's infighting, there's factionalization, and it's just messy and dirty and wrong and bad. But every now and then you get a lovely comment like that, and it makes me happy because this person doesn't care about the internal, whatever the drama is. And I'm not saying I have issues with, any of these people who we named here. Totally fine with these guys. And I think I'm fine with everybody in the space, right? Those are my feelings, but it's always nice when somebody's just like doesn't care about that and is like, hey, just do collabs. Because when you look at other like YouTube genres, like people just, or even I was gonna say the rap game, but there was a lot of feuding in the rap game and even some murder in the rap game. But like oftentimes with artists nowadays, you do see like people just doing collabs with other people, and there doesn't seem to be nearly as much drama. It's like everybody's just mutually trying to help everybody else. In the comedian world, you see that people just mutually trying to help everybody else. And I feel like valuing solidarity over that like petty high school like infighting is super important and good for everybody's mental health and good for the world. And so when somebody says like, hey, collab with this person, that person, I like it because it shows me this person, that's where this person's head is at. They don't care about petty drama and who said that in 2017. Fuck that person. They don't care about that, and that makes me love this person. So thank you very much for saying that. I have no issues whatsoever. I would love to talk to either one of those people. I don't know how I'm going to pay for the super chat. All right.
Kyle does need a chat with David Pakman, though, because they need to hash out their disagreement on Marianne Williamson. Recently, David Hackman put out this super hacky MSNBC light video criticizing Marianne Williamson and calling her out for some tweets she made 15 years ago where she was saying something that sounded kind of spiritual, kind of kooky. And David Pakman did a really just hacky takedown of Marianne Williamson. So I agree with Kyle. He should do a collab with David Pakman, but I want to see a debate with David Pakman. I want to see him like hash out his disagreement with Pakman. That's what I want to see. As for Vosh, I always enjoy listening to Kyle and Vosh go back and forth, debate a little bit. What's up, Zach?
Bro, that was insane. I'm so sorry about that, guys.
You got evicted?
So I have no idea because I was not the one that booked the Airbnbs, but Mariah was like, oh yeah, just chill at the Airbnb. We're fine. We got till tomorrow. And I was like, oh, bet. Apparently that was not the case, but that's okay. The dude's being a homie. He's letting me chill on the patio until we finish.
Okay, hell yeah. So you're good? I mean, if you need to do something, we don't have to stream right now.
No,
Or I
it's
can
cool.
just keep doing
I'm
this.
just chilling outside, so we can just rock and roll until Mariah gets back, and then I might have to peace out. But yeah, shout out to Kyle for 1 million subs. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, dude, I know, right? Super proud of Kyle. He is, I don't agree with Kyle Kalinske on everything. Obviously, you guys know that. We've debated Kyle on our show, but I will say I always really admire Kyle because Kyle is honest about his opinions and he's basically immune to audience capture. And you can disagree with him on whatever issues as much as you want, but I think most people have to agree with that. Like Kyle is not just the kind of commentator who puts his finger in the wind and sees where the wind is blowing and, tries to follow the crowd. He does say what he believes. And sometimes that means that, he says things I disagree with or that his audience disagrees with, but he is not afraid of his audience and he is immune to audience capture, which means that when you do listen to him, you're getting his honest opinion. And I really value that. I think that's a rare quality in this space, something that I've realized since we joined this space, Zach, something I realize is an incredibly rare quality, which, a long time ago, I wouldn't have thought that. I just, of course, everyone's saying what they think. Why would they not just be honest about their opinions? But then you realize, no, a lot of people are really just chasing that money. They're just trying to say what they think their audience wants to hear because they don't want to piss off their audience and they want to keep growing.
Yeah, absolutely. They're just feeding you back what you want to hear. It actually reminds me a lot of when they did that just fucking ferocious takedown of Russell Brand in The Guardian. And I know that there are a lot of people that like Russell Brand for his commentary in our chat, and that's cool. I get why he's a very enthusiastic and entertaining guy. But one of the things he just straight up gives away is that like they pull a quote of him where he's talking about just like presenting what you already knew back to you as like your media. And like he's bragging about it. He's saying like, I just give the people what they already like know that they want to hear from me. Right. And it's like, yeah, well, that's the problem. Right. You can't necessarily do that. And I remember the first time we even spoke with Kyle, we asked him, we were like, hey man, like, your channel's kind of stalling out, right? You're really stuck at that hump after 900,000. What's your plan for getting to 1 million, turning it around, gaining more traction again? And he was like, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, guys. Like, this is what I do. This is the pace that I set for myself. I've never had any kind of, analytical, finger in the wind kind of approach to political analysis. I just come out here and say what I always have said, for a while. And he mentioned this at the beginning of his live stream too, when he was talking about 1 million subs for the first 2 years, just talk to himself basically to a webcam, right? For the longest time until he developed an audience full of people. And it's so crazy going back and watching that stream, the evolution of secular talk, right? From even back before Gavin and I started watching it, or at least before I did, right? The old headset Kyle was like just before my era. He had just gotten enough money to unveil the like secular talk little like neon, whatever. And he moved into that like slightly better studio space that he had before the Crystal Kyle and Friend podcast. So yeah, really proud of the guy. I think that he's the textbook example of how to be consistent with your values. And even when we don't agree, like you said, Gavin, you know, you drop me out of the stream. LOL. Anyway, Murphy's Law today, guys. You're going to have to fucking, next time you're going to be hauled off in a cop car or something on air. I don't know.
LOL. I'm glad you were able to figure out how to get back in, because I was like, oh, fuck. I know Zach wants to talk about this Anna Kasparian drama. I don't want to just plow into that without you. So I'm glad that you got back before we had to start on that story.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you guys holding off on that for me. But yeah, I mean, Karen Kasparian striking again, right? The joke going around the internet now is that they're not the Young Turks, they're the Young Turfs. And that's been making me laugh a lot. That's been good for a good chuckle.
Yeah, so I saw the Young Turfs trending on Twitter this morning, and I was like, that's weird. I wonder what happened. I wonder why that's trending, right? And then I see that Anna Kasparian is trending. So I'm like, well, I better go to Anna Kasparian's profile to see what's up. Oops, I forgot. She blocked us. So
hit too close to home with some Jimmy Dore humor.
Right. So yeah, unfortunately, I'm blocked by Anna Kasparian. We're blocked by Anna Kasparian on the main Vanguard Twitter, but little does Anna Kasparian know, little did she account for. I have my other Twitter, my personal Twitter, which all you guys should go follow, FYI. So let's journey over here to my Brave browser so I can show you guys exactly her hot take that has the whole internet up in arms. She says, I'm a woman. Please don't ever refer to me as a person with a uterus, birthing person, or person who menstruates. How do people not realize how degrading this is? You can support the transgender community without doing this shit. And of course, a lot of people called her out for this one. We'll get into a myriad of responses she got from people that are her own allies and her own friends and colleagues, as well as a lot of people like Carrie Lake, for example, who are on the far right, basically fascists we're talking about here. But, you know, just to address this sentiment, I have a little bit of mixed feelings on this, to be completely honest, because I think that on its face value, yeah, the term birthing person, like it does sound a little bit dehumanizing. It makes it sound like your whole personhood is being reduced down to your ability to give birth and to make babies. So I can understand if you just hear that term, how you might be a little bit turned off by it. And you might be like, well, that's not really an appropriate way to refer to a woman as a birthing person. What are you fucking talking about? That sounds crazy. That sounds like something out of The Handmaid's Tale or some
Bethany
shit.
Mendel calling herself a proud breeder.
Exactly. So I can understand that. And I think that a lot of people who may not be really tuned into politics or the discourse around trans issues and the sort might hear that and be off put, understandably. But the thing is that, first of all, very few people actually use these terms, right? I went to college. Obviously, colleges are pretty, notorious for their liberal values and their liberal brainwashing and all that stuff. Not once in my 4 years at university did I hear anyone, any professor, any student, anyone in any role whatsoever use the word birthing person or person who menstruates instead of woman. And that goes for literally every other setting I've ever been in. Not school just came to mind because it's a place that people often think of as like a liberal institution. But anywhere, I live in Kansas City. Maybe if I lived in fucking Los Angeles or something, or New York City, I'd have a different experience, admittedly. But I've never heard anyone say birthing person. I've never heard anyone actually refer to people as or women as people who menstruate, stuff like that. So for one, I think this whole phenomenon is overrated. It's overhyped. I don't think that many people, if anyone, is actually trying all that desperately to change the way we talk about male and female and so on and so forth. But the other thing that has to be mentioned to this argument from people like Anna Kasparian is that these terms, person with a uterus, birthing person, person who menstruates, they're actually not a replacement for the term woman. No one is saying, instead of saying woman, let's now call women birthing people. It's a broader term that encompasses more individuals to account for the experience of non-women who still menstruate and non-women who still have the ability to give birth. Because of the existence of trans people and non-binary people, there actually is a class of, or a group of people that are capable of menstruating, that are capable of giving birth, but don't actually identify as women. So birthing person is not a replacement for the word woman. No one's going around saying man and birthing people instead of man and woman. No, it's used more in a medical sense when we're talking about something like reproductive rights, for example, or something like, menstruation and policies that might affect that. Then if you're talking about reproductive rights, for example, you can say, well, this abortion bill will mean this for people who have the ability to give birth, people who have the ability to reproduce. And that's not just women, because there are some trans men who still have the ability to reproduce. They still have the reproductive system of a female, even though they identify as a man. They're not women, but they still have the ability to menstruate. Hence the term people who menstruate. I don't think it's that hard to wrap your mind around or wrap your head around. I don't think it's terribly hard to get that. And while I agree that on its face value, birthing person sounds a little bit off-putting, it's really just in a specific context that it's being used, one that I think makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just feeds, again, this is a perfect example of this, of the Young Turks Network, just amplifying and fanning the flames of right-wing rhetoric, right? Because of, Cenk took to Twitter after this and he was like, well, if it's only being used in a political context, then that's totally fine. It's like, that is how it's being used, right? Like, you are unwilling to accept that there are other women that aren't going to have the same exact lived experience as a cisgendered woman, right? And that's what it comes back down to, right? Like the mere existence of these people being like a point of frustration for you, or being a point where you're like, I don't want to be anything like these people, right? Like, we have to be different. It's like, why do you feel the need to differentiate yourself in this way, right? Like, okay, yes, cis women are different than trans women, but they're both women. That's why we call cis women cisgendered women and trans women, right? And this encompasses the nuances of the experiences of the fucking 21st century, right? I just don't get the fucking up in arms, like the need to be like incensed by this. It's like, it's not like anybody is like going into a bathroom and now it says birthing person on it, right? It's not like anybody's going to the restaurant and they're like, this is birthing person night, half the price shots for everybody that's a birthing person. Like, this is not, it's not ubiquitous like that. It is used in specific niche areas to talk about how, yes, we need to provide access to menstrual products for all people, right? And you don't want to invalidate the identity of somebody who maybe is non-binary. Maybe, I know plenty of non-binary people who, menstruate, right? Like, what are they supposed to just be chopped liver? Are they not allowed to be part of the conversation? Does inclusive language really undermine your existence that much? Are you that fragile, right? I mean, it's pretty ridiculous, right? And I mean, you could think of like all kinds of examples of where like people want to hold on to again, we were talking about this just the other day, actually, about how people want to hold on to antiquated language because there's power in that language, right? There's power in keeping rhetorically like the language that we're using the way that it was. And people will say, oh no, I'm just fighting for this definition. And what you're really articulating is you're fighting for a regressed time period. You're fighting to go back to before there was any acknowledgement or any recognition for trans women, non-binary people, trans men, as we made the point, can still menstruate. So the fact that you're repelled by the inclusion of those individuals in these broader discussions, I think, is the revealing part of this, right? Of course, this isn't The Handmaid's Tale. No woman is reduced down to being a fucking womb. No woman is reduced down to being a carrier of a fetus. That's not something that anybody is trying to make the case for, right? But, just having a huge fucking tantrum about people who use inclusive language and saying that you refuse to be a part of it, like, okay, like just run right into the arms of the fucking, groomer crowd, right? Like that's what they want. That's like, this is a massive W for that. That's why people like Ben Shapiro retweeted this. You saw people like Carrie Lake getting into their replies because they love this shit. And honestly, this is what Anna Kasparian's role is in media at this point, right? It is, how do I, in my own neoliberal, wine mom fashion, how do I become fodder for conservative talking points, right? How do I become a generator for topics that, conservatives are, gonna like retweet me, how I'm gonna be the good lefty, right? Like I'm gonna be the lefty that goes on Ben Shapiro's show and tells him that the rest of the left is crazy and that we need way more cops, and that, in the most incarcerated country in America, the real solution is fucking more cops, and that we just let everybody go in this country, even though that is not borne out by a single fact if you actually did your homework, right? And it's just a continuation of that. It's how do I frame this issue so that it has me being the rational lefty, and then the right can be like, see, even this lefty agrees with us. I mean, we've talked about how that's a model for success on the internet across the board, right? And it's actually the exact opposite of what we just described as the behavior coming from Kyle. This is clearly trying to generate controversy. This is clearly trying to like repivot, right? And it makes sense because the Bernie Sanders movement is over. And Anna and Cenk want to be more of like an MSNBC light. They want to be MSNBC online. They do not want to have the nuanced kind of critical analysis that we once saw from them as inspired by the Bernie Sanders movement. And now we're seeing what I would imagine was a lot more similar to the content of like 2010, 2012 era Young Turks Network, where there's like a little bit of an edgelord element to it. There's a little bit of an online element, but at the end of the day, their politics aren't radically progressive. They're just not. Cenk Uygur will sit here and tell you the benefits of, why it actually is the best that the guy sitting at the top of the chair of the corporation is raking in all this because he took the risk. And, we watched him have that debate with Hassan Piker not too long ago. I mean, this isn't a guy that, is his value set is where our value set is at. So it's just a matter of now there's no longer an opportunity to capitalize on this in the news. And so they've moved it to where they think there's a wider swath of people that are interested in consuming their content.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And some people in chat are saying like, oh, well, would you guys want to be called people who produce semen or whatever? And in certain contexts, no, I wouldn't care about that at all. Like if you're talking about vasectomies, for example, and how vasectomies impact people who produce semen or sperm or whatever, would that somehow be like an attack on my manhood if in a medical context where the discussion was vasectomies, they said, well, this is going to affect people who have the ability to produce sperm? Do I all of a sudden, is my masculinity threatened by that because of the reality and the acknowledgement that some people who don't identify as men have the ability to produce sperm? No, that's not a fucking attack on my masculinity. I don't give a shit about that at all. Now, admittedly, if someone walked up to Anna Kasparian and said, hey, you birthing person, hey, you person who menstruates, come over here. Okay, well, obviously that's incredibly degrading, and you shouldn't do that to anyone, just like you shouldn't refer to a man as a fucking sperm producer. Hey, get over here, sperm producer, produce some sperm for me. Obviously, that's problematic. But if we're talking about like a medical context or in the context of a abortion bill or some issue that has to do with reproductive rights, or hey, they increase the tax on tampons or something, or decrease the tax on menstrual products, this will affect people who have the ability to menstruate, some of which are not women, some of which identify as men or something in between man and woman. That's okay. It doesn't matter. To use language which includes those people is not an offense to you. It's not an assault to you. It's not an affront to your personal womanhood, nor the womanhood of any other woman who identifies proudly as a woman. That's fine. No one's trying to take that away from you. And I just don't really understand this kind of straw man argument of like, they're trying to, change the way people talk about women. They're trying to just turn us into birthing people. Like, that's actually not really what's happening. And honestly, that is a right-wing talking point that's
and that
just
would be
untrue.
the right wing that's trying to take away your right to an abortion, by the way, in every single state. And I also think that it's important to point out that a lot of the people that use this kind of rhetoric are the ones that are like, oh, well, you have to be able to define what a woman is, and a woman is somebody with a uterus. And it's like, well, we were all saying that's not true. We were all over here being like, what about somebody that's fucking gone through menopause? What about somebody like, we were the ones over here saying, well, that's not true though, right? Like, that's just biologically, that doesn't bear out. It's conservatives that were fucking shitting their loads about oh, what is a woman? The left can't define what a woman is. They don't know what a woman is. They've never been to biology class, right? Those are the people who you're running into the warm embrace of now. The people who do view you as a uterus, the people who do view you as a birthing person, right? You are running right into the warm embrace of the Carrie Lakes and the Ben Shapiro and the people who do want you to be a stay-at-home fucking fertile myrtle, okay? A little fucking birthing machine. That's essentially who you're aligning yourself with in an attempt to own the left, or the people who are fighting for reproductive rights in all 50 states, or the people who are trying to promote equality, right? And you notice this throughout history. If you ever look at prejudice and how people adopt them, it always starts with shit like this. This is how they reveal that they actually have a prejudice towards somebody, because they want to otherize that person. They don't want to accept that other person is on the same footing as them. They need a differentiating factor. They need that differentiating factor of, oh, I am a cis woman, that's a trans woman, we're not the same, just because it carries that aura of like, I don't know, that you're better off or whatever the fuck, or you are better or inherently like more natural than, a trans person.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Also, shout out to you, Adi, for the $20. That's really generous of you, man. I'm not well versed in this issue, but living in Boston, I've had many instances, say 10% of my group interactions, where these terms were socially enforced pretty hard. I don't mind using them, but don't agree with this either. That's interesting, Adi. Like I said, we're coming at you guys from Kansas City, so maybe the culture in Boston is a little bit more liberal, and people are trying to enforce these sort of terms more. That's not my experience, but I appreciate you for sharing your experience, Adi.
Yeah, look, man, I would just inquire about what was the context of this. Like, where were you where were you around people who were enforcing, like, oh, don't call that person a woman, like that's a birthing person, like that's a person with a uterus, you better call them a person with a uterus, don't call them a woman. Like, I would be curious about what context that occurred in, because I do think the context matters to some capacity. I would be shocked if you guys were just hanging out at the bar and you were like, oh, who's that woman over there? And they were like, you use the birthing that's a birthing person, that's a birthing person. Like, I don't know if that's ever happened before. So I would be curious when, in your experience, you felt like people were enforcing those. And I know you said you don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with it either. But I would be curious about when that is happening. Like, are you having a specific conversation about policy and the people are trying to be inclusive to all people, or is this just like kind of a casual conversation around brews? Because I've never experienced that myself, but I'm curious about the extent of your experience, Adi.
Yeah, 100%, Adi. Thanks so much. And also appreciate the $10, Rami, and that is generous of you as well. The problem is that tens of millions saw Leah Thomas towering over two women on the platform. We can't unsee that. Denying reality hurts real people. Well, now you're talking about a whole different issue, Rami, which is trans women and trans men in sports. And my position on this has been pretty consistent. I'm not an athlete. I don't know shit about the science of athleticism and bodily physics and how those things are impacted by hormones and the various drugs that people take to transition. So I don't really have a position on the inclusion of trans people in like major league sports. I think it's ridiculous to exclude trans people from like high school sports and stuff like that, but I can see the case of like someone who's gone through puberty as a man, like grew up and had a male puberty, and then female athletes that are biologically female saying like, hey, this isn't really fair, this person has an advantage over me. I can understand the logic behind that, and I don't think that it's transphobic to discuss that, or to say like, maybe if you did go through puberty as a man, it gives you an unfair advantage over biological females that never experienced that. I can understand that, and I don't think that's transphobic to talk about. But that's just a whole different issue, Rami, and I don't think this really has as much to do with the discussion at hand. What do you think, Zach?
Well, I think it's funny because it's the only time people want to talk about women's sports at all. Like, Rami, and what's your favorite WNBA team? Like, do you have a favorite star that plays women's golf? Have you seen the U.S. national women's hockey team play? Do you care about any other issue other than the fact that this unique instance where Leah Thomas, who has swam their entire life, she's swam her entire life since she was 5 years old. She's competed in competitive swimming. Okay. She has spent her whole life a fucking athlete. And do you really think that, oh, you know what? Now that I'm in high school and I'm trying to question my gender identity, that I'm now doing this as some sort of a way to gain a leg up in swimming, that I'm going to sacrifice all of the fucking, social norms, the vitriol from people like you, Ramian, who are going to get all up in arms about how this person is competing. And you know what? I think all colleges should be free. So I don't think that you should be competing for scholarships in college. In fact, the purpose of college is for development, right? It is to refine yourself. It is about building camaraderie, right? These are schools. These are institutions of higher learning. And I have a broader critique of the fact that they're used as machines and fucking essentially like training grounds for professional sports in this country, and to the detriment of the athletes a lot of the time. So if you want to have a narrow discussion about something you don't care about, like women's sports, I'd be happy to do that with you. But it doesn't seem like your interests are involved there, right? Like it's just about the fact that this girl was swimming and she won. And, I don't think it's that big of an issue at all in the collegiate setting. And it's, they have very rigorous rules about the Olympics already. So I don't really see it as too big of an issue. It's also like a super niche issue. Like how many times a year does this happen? Like 100, like out of all the sporting events, out of all, like you have like, there aren't that many trans athletes, right? So I don't know. I just think it's a non-issue. It's a distraction, and it just creates a ground for where people are going to start to make comments like this that, again, just reinforce the vitriol and the disdain for trans people.
Oh, 100%, 100%. Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Although, like I said, I'm not an athlete, let alone a female athlete, so I don't really have much of an opinion on that. I think obviously we should try as hard as possible to make everything, including sports, as inclusive as possible. But I'm not really super educated as to the different biological realities of various people along their transition journey. And obviously there's a difference, because if you have puberty blockers in your youth and you don't go through puberty as a male, then I do think that there's really nothing that should prevent you from competing as a woman.
But can I ask you this, Gavin?
Yeah.
No matter how hard you train for your entire life, you were never going to beat Michael Phelps at swimming, right? Why is that?
I mean, just because he's naturally way more talented than I am.
He's built, genetically, that man is built to fucking swim and swim fast. His feet are like size 15. His hands are ginormous. He beats the Leonardo da Vinci thing where his wingspan is longer than his legs, right? I'll never be in the NBA. Why? Because I'm not fucking 7 foot and I can't jump 10 feet in the air, right? Like these are biological differences between us that open doors and open opportunities for people. But because there's a hang up in whether or not somebody is transgendered or cisgendered, I think we ignore that a lot of the time. You know what I mean? Like, I'm never gonna be able to fucking throw a fucking football over an offensive line. Why? Because I'm not 6'4" and nobody would draft me, right? Like there are different benefits that you can get that are just biological benefits, like natural biological, just assets to your body, to your ability to perform athletically, right? And a lot of people are like, what about fucking women's scholarship opportunities? Yeah, guess what? Your genetics has a huge fucking impact on whether or not you're going to be able to get a college scholarship opportunity. Some people are just not built like athletes, right? So are we instead of just disassembling the entire problem, which is that people have to compete for scholarship money so they can afford to get an education.
Well, I'm not talking about scholarships.
No, I'm responding to chat. There are a lot of people in the chat that are like, how could you take these opportunities away from like women's scholarships and those kinds of things? And I just think you can do away with that if you just say, I don't think anybody should have to be competing for scholarships. I think everybody has the right to an education. I think everybody has the right to push themselves as hard as they can and grow. And that's what would happen if we stopped forcing this narrow manufactured competition for school funding based on your narrow athletic ability.
Yeah, no, I totally am with you on the whole issue of scholarships. I 100% agree with you on that. I'm just talking about purely people who have been through puberty as a male and how I've heard that affects your bone density and muscular structure and all of these things that might, in fact, give you a advantage in some sports. Like in the same way that we have weight classes, right? When it comes to martial arts and boxing, like it's just unfair to put someone who's like 200 pounds up against someone who's like 160 pounds. It's just like one of them has a clear physical advantage. But either way, that's kind of an argument for another day. We can get into that more at some point. And like I said, I'm super uneducated on it, which is why I try not to have too much of an opinion anyway on the subject matter. I think that, people involved in athletics can figure that out. I'm clearly not an athlete myself. So, I don't fucking know. I think other people can, speak to that a little bit more eloquently, probably.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and I'm not the best person to speak for it either. I'm just, making the case that, that that's what I see when I look at this issue, right? Like like you see a bunch of conservatives who have never given a single fuck about women's sports in their entire life. Can't tell you a single fucking famous female athlete. Now they want to get all up in arms about like one miscellaneous trans swimmer from UPenn, and I'm just like, I really don't see the authenticity of that there. You want to fucking start putting her back into women's sports? Let me hear from you then.
Sure. I totally agree with you there. And like I said, Anna got a lot of different responses here. Vosh chimed in, and Vosh and Anna are on really good terms. They're very friendly with one another. Anna was recently on Vosh's live stream for an interview. So it's not like these are people that don't like each other already. But yeah, Vosh says, I have never heard any of these terms outside of a few tweets and PowerPoint screenshots where academics grasp desperately for some inoffensive, inclusive medical terminology. And that's my experience as well. I know Adi was saying he's, had a slightly different experience as far as his rate of encountering these terms, but I'm in the same exact boat as Vosh here. I've really never heard these terms used, definitely not in a mainstream case, only ever in deep political discussions and discourse surrounding things like reproductive rights, stuff like that. To say that there's like some societal initiative or effort to, change the human lexicon and turn everyone into someone who says birthing person in place of woman is absolutely ridiculous.
Yep, 100%. Couldn't agree with you more, Gavin. But it looks like we do have a couple of super chats to get to. As well. They lost from my screen though because of fucking internet outside.
Oh yeah, we have a couple super chats to address. Let's look at a couple. Are you cool to look at a couple more responses Anna got before we address those, Zach?
Yeah, for sure. And then we've got Scott Desnoyers coming on at 4:30.
Okay, gotcha. So yeah, we'll get to all the super chats, guys. Don't worry. But yeah, I did want to look at a couple more responses. Mac, friend of the show, says, is this really something that happens regularly? Seems like a hyper online thing. Worth going to bat for given the bolstering of right-wing trans hysteria. Great point from Mac. And again, if Anna wants to clarify and say, hey, I was walking down the street the other day and someone turned to me and said, hey, birthing person, get over here. Like, obviously that's an exception. And I totally understand having an issue with that. That is incredibly dehumanizing, degrading, sounds terrible out of context. So if that's what happened, if someone just nonchalantly referred to her as a fucking birthing person, like, yeah, I get being offended by that. But she didn't clarify what the context was. She didn't clarify who, if anyone, actually referred to her that way and why, or where she encountered that.
I also think you could make the fair point that if Anna Kasparian's walking down the street and I say, hey, woman, she's not going to like that either. She's not going to like that either. Oh, I don't want somebody to just shout at me on the street. That's a fair thing to say. I don't think it matters what they call you. Like, get over here, woman. What's up, girl? They don't like that shit. Nobody likes that shit. So I'm just like, in this context, you're making it impossible for it to sound like a fair word, right? It would be more like somebody saying, well, us birthing people, or as a birthing person, like in a way that's inclusive and like super not offensive. And then I imagine that, Karen Kasparian, went to work.
Absolutely correct. 100%. That's such a good point, Zach. So let's look at one more response. Humanist Report chimed in. He says, I respect you a lot, but this notion that the mere existence of trans inclusive terms, rarely used in casual convos, somehow degrades women comes right out of the right's anti-trans war on woman playbook. There's a reason why they're praising you for this. And that's a pretty good response in my opinion. I think that the Humanist Report is 100% on point there. And she responded to him, actually. She didn't respond to a lot of the criticism she got, but she did respond in this instance and said, hey, Mike, you're a guy who has no clue what it's like to have your reproductive freedom taken away, but consider what it's like to have the same lawmakers who failed to protect us or failed to protect our rights turn around and call us people with uteruses. It's not inclusive if cis women hate it. I mean, I'm sure some cis women hate it. Clearly you do. I don't know if you have any evidence as to how many cis women feel what sort of way about it.
J.K. Rowling has said on pretty good authority that everyone hates
it. Yeah, but I mean, yeah, obviously it's true. Mike's not someone that has a uterus. Zach and I, we're not people that have that experience either. What's your response to this, Zach?
Look, I think this is like clear obfuscation, right? Like, okay, Anna, you're not homeless. Shut the fuck up when it comes to homeless people. Like, what do you, how do you want me to deal with that? You're a political commentator, so is Mike. He's going to give his fucking take on this issue. So it's like, oh yeah, and you're not a queer person, Anna. Shut the fuck up. Okay, so see how it's easy to play that game if you wanna be reductive about it. Like, no, of course not. And look, again, she's not upset about this because it's by and large widespread, like we the word woman is outlawed and now it's just uterus birthing machine, you're a breeder and this is the Handmaid's Tale. No, she doesn't like it because she thinks it makes her synonymous with trans women, and she has a distaste or a dislike or a hatred rather or a fear for trans people. And so I think she's just trying to obfuscate, and she knows she doesn't have a good point for Mike here to be like, oh yeah, LOL, Carrie Lake and Ben Shapiro are also really big fucking stern advocates for women's rights. You're getting the RT from them, you're going over to Ben Shapiro's show to play Diddy with him to indulge in all of his fucking whack framework about the homelessness issue, right? So yeah, I just think that's just that's what you do when you don't have an argument. You say, you're not me, bro. Like, okay, yeah, but could you put together an argument like this is debate class, please? Because we're trying to reach an audience here. I don't care what you think. I care what your audience reacts to what you think.
Yeah, 100% agreed. 100% agreed. And we do have a special guest joining us shortly. Let's get through some of these super chats real quick before Scott arrives. And I promise we'll get to all of them, guys. So if we're not able to address every single super chat in the next 5 minutes, then we'll definitely address the other ones after we're done chatting with Scott. But thank you so much, Neo, for the 199. Kyle effing hit 1 million. Let's go independent media. Yeah, huge congratulations to Kyle. That's so dope.
Yeah, that's awesome. Shout out to Kyle, and shout out to Neo's algorithm. Really appreciate seeing you in the super chat.
Absolutely. And shout out to you, Mariposa. Trans women on HRT lose the ability to produce sperm. Yeah, I was, referencing just assuming there's some non-binary people or people out there that don't necessarily identify as men, but still might not actually be on HRT yet, or, for whatever reason. So
T is expensive if you don't have health insurance.
Exactly. So, but you're 100% correct, Mariposa. Thank you for the super chat. Got a couple more.
Even some health insurance won't cover it. I have a homie that was explaining to me just how fucking expensive that shit is. As I know you've had explained to you, like, people don't just fucking sign up for this shit on a whim. Okay. Like, it makes me frustrated when that's the framework, because it's like, you've never met a trans person. Like, you don't know what the fuck they've gone through. Mia Mulder has the best video on trans women in sports. Highly recommended. A lot of transphobia is parallel with racism in women's sports. Yeah, dude, that's actually a great point. A lot of the arguments that you'll hear bashing on, trans women echo the fucking, racist, discussions that we're having, 50 years ago.
100%. Yeah. Thank you so much, Mariposa. And thank you, Adi, for the $10. Context indeed matters, which is why I said certain interactions. I wasn't the one who was called out, but it was a speaker at a small event who was talking about women's rights in Asian countries. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, if you get a bunch of super far left people together, that does sometimes happen where, they all just want a virtue signal, like that a classic DSA conference where, excuse me, please do not use gendered language. Excuse me.
Personal privilege.
Exactly. So I can definitely see that happening, Adi. I can definitely see that happening. Yeah, and that shit can be kind of insufferable, when people just start virtue signaling and acting like, oh, like, like, all right, chill. But shout out to you, Adi.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to you, Adi. Really appreciate that super chat. And yeah, look, not trying to come down on you. I know that there are instances where that shit happens. I was just trying to make the point that it's usually not between, regular people. It is usually in an institutional setting like that, where people are, really ready to flex their politics often. And is that the best way to go about it? Usually it's not. At the end, you could be like, would you consider using more inclusive language? Like, but just, getting outraged about it and castigating somebody for just using, like, what is, more layman verbiage. I think that's, more detrimental than beneficial. And he says that I think my problem is how we, the left, react to people asking these questions, even in good faith. Exactly. A lot of this is fairly new, and we should give others time to understand and room to make mistakes. We absolutely should. However, I would just disagree that somebody with millions of subscribers on YouTube that makes their living giving people the news is somebody that I'm going to take the time to walk, with their hands held through this issue. Like, people have already done that with Anna. She chose to go a different way. She's a big girl. She has a massive media platform. I would not respond the same way if I was at work and one of my coworkers, was was on the
Right.
other side of this equation, I would try and, be more friendly and walk them through it, because, that's what you do when you're trying to win hearts. Right. But people who have media careers, they're working with their mind. Right. So, yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Audie. And that's why I was saying, like, when it comes to the sports conversation, I don't think it's transphobic to have that discussion. I don't think it's transphobic to ask those questions and to, like have a conversation about it. And yeah, when it comes to just normie people that maybe are of a different generation or grew up with a different understanding of these issues, I understand like it's a bit of a learning curve, and maybe you have to talk to some actual people from that community to really understand that reality, because it is definitely different for a lot of people. So yeah, I think we shouldn't create a society where people are afraid to have these discussions or afraid to ask these questions. I don't think it's transphobic to talk about this stuff, or to be a little bit skeptical of some aspects of it, as long as you're like willing and open to learning and absorbing other people's perspectives and experiences and all that good stuff. But yeah, shout out to you, Audie, really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And without further ado, Gavin, I did have a little clip that I wanted to play from Scott before we introduced him here. He sent this over. This is going to be a segment from the documentary that good friend of the show, Kenny Ballantyne, put together, I do believe. So let's go ahead and play this, and then we can get Scott in here. He's going to talk about a demonstration that he's planning live on the show today. And while this plays, I'm gonna scoot off for 1 second while we figure out what the fuck we're going to do with the Airbnb situation. So cheers, guys. I'll be back in 3 minutes when this is over.
Sounds good.
So my name is Scott Desnoyers. I live in Saratoga Springs, New York. For the most part, I'm just a dad. I'm nothing more than that. Just every other guy down the street. But about 2 years ago, almost to the day, my son had come home to me, and he had said to me, "Pops, I went to get my medicine refill today and found out that my insurance had been canceled." So I tell Danny when he came home that day, I'm like, "Okay, Danny, it's not a big deal. I'm sure we can help you out." He's like, "Pops, I know I need this medicine." Word for word. "Pops, I know I need this medicine." I'm like, "Okay, how much is it?" He tells me it's $250. I mean, that's a big deal because we don't ever have $250 just laying around for whatever, I'm like, "Okay, Danny, let's, try to figure this out. I mean, in a couple of weeks, you have an appointment with your therapist. I'm sure she can help you out. In the meantime, you should call Fidelis and find out what happened." Danny didn't call right away like he should have. He waited a couple of days. And when he did, he found out that he missed a $20 payment for a Medicaid program, and they cut him off of a medication with a known suicidal risk. On April 9th of 2019, I read a suicide note on Facebook, and it says to us, "I can't get above this pain, and I've decided death by drowning. I've superglued my seatbelt shut, double checked, and I'm not strong enough to break it free. For those I'm hurting, I'm so sorry. Danny, Daniel, and Hazel, I'm so fucking sorry." He drove his truck into the Mohawk River. I saw his post 32 seconds after he posted it. Anna was sitting across the table from me, and Emma was sitting alongside of me. I screamed out to her what happened, what I was reading, and I read the whole note to her. I live 5 minutes from Saratoga Lake. When he posted his Facebook post, he had an image of the cab of his truck overlooking the water. I live 5 minutes from Saratoga Lake, so I assumed that's where he was. I mean, he just left that morning a couple hours before that, So I jumped in the car, and I tried to race down the lake and save him. I was driving around that lake at like 65 miles per hour. Roads maybe meant for 30. Looking for bubbles, mud in the water, anything. If that wasn't bad enough, after about 15, 20 minutes, I realized there's no way any human could have survived that long. And I had to make the conscious decision to drive home and tell my wife our boy was dead because he missed a $20 fucking payment. I vowed at his funeral that I'm going to make our lawmakers look me in the eye and see the consequences of their decisions. Why did they deny Danny medication with a known suicidal risk? Because it was $20. It's not important what our treatment is needed. What's important is that they get paid. That's it. just that they get paid. So I won't stop fighting until my son's murderers are as dead as he is. And by that, I don't mean the people that run the corporations, but the corporations themselves. They have no business in our healthcare.
And without further ado, we're going to be welcoming Scott Desnoyers himself to the stream. How you doing today, Scott? Obviously, a very emotional topic. It's a very hard, difficult to watch. It's a difficult story to cover, but it's important. We have to have these conversations because the effects of this are so devastating. And you know, our hearts are always with you, Scott. But how you doing today?
Thank you so much. You know, I've had much worse days, obviously. As you said, we are in the middle of starting an action and getting started on that. But before we go there, you know, I just wanted to thank you guys personally. You know, you guys have always been such major allies, you know, especially to the healthcare justice and, you know, so many other, you know, avenues as well. So thank you guys so much.
Oh, of course. And we, you know, right back out to Scott, really appreciate the hard work that you're always doing for your community and for the rest of the country. You know, it's always great to see and, you know, massive solidarity.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. That means a lot. Obviously, you're always welcome on the Vanguard to share your story and talk about the ongoing fight that you're engaged in on the ground for universal healthcare. And that's why you're here today to talk a little bit about an action that's upcoming on April 9th. Do you want to let our audience know a little bit about what you guys are planning?
Yeah, that sounds great. The reason I chose April 9th is that was the same date of the action that I held last year. I don't know if you all recall that one. I held that in Buffalo, New York, in front of Fidelis Care, which was the corporation, the company that denied my son his medication. And last year's action, what we were doing was highlighting the hypocrisy of our for-profit healthcare system by pointing out that the founder of Fidelis Care was an ordained priest of the Brooklyn Catholic Diocese, Father Patrick Frawley. And we were using that to not only highlight the hypocrisy of the healthcare system, but at the same time, amplify the New York Health Act. You know, the New York Health Act is a state-based single-payer universal healthcare piece of legislation that we actually had the votes to pass last year, but was refused to be called for a vote by Andrea Cousins and Carl Hastie, our speaker and assembly leader. So we didn't get a huge turnout, but we had a lot of solidarity. We had amazing press coverage. They actually played it on the local news all day Saturday, like every 20 minutes, and it was a 5-minute, you know, broadcast. So it was amazing. We had support from the Green Party. Howie Hawkins had written a letter in support of our action. And as well as we got a retweet from Susan Sarandon, who's been an amazing supporter for us all as well. So anyway, this year, April 9th is also Easter Sunday. And we are no longer allowing Father Frawley to deny his religious teachings. You know, last year we gave him the opportunity to either step down and renounce the legalized manslaughter that he's been profiting from, or he can, you know, renounce his title of priest. You know, we are not giving him that option to renounce his title anymore. You know, he claims to be a man of God. And for every photo shoot that he has with Fidelis Care, he is wearing that collar. So he is selling his religion, telling people it's okay to get insurance with us. I'll protect you. You're in the hands of God, right? As a matter of fact, Fidelis Care's logo has a hand holding a circle or something, pretending that they care. Fidelis is actually Latin for faithful. So they're saying faithful care. Well, this year's action is called Fidelis Carens Cura, because care isn't a Latin word, but Carens is. Carens means lacking, and Cura is care. So this year's action is called Fidelis Carens Cura. And that logo, you guys might have remembered that piece of artwork that I did. That is my piece of artwork that I did called Danny's Final Payment. and it symbolizes the $20 that Danny was late to paying this managed Medicaid program. This is going to be held in front of Fidelis Care in Queens, but the address has actually changed from the original one. That's why I'm a little bit hesitant, because originally there was an address that they had at 9501 Queens Boulevard, and me and my wife went to scope it out, which is a 3-hour drive. And when we got there, we learned that Fidelis moved. So I'm glad we went to 3-hour drive to New York City to check it out, because that would be really bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And where is it going to be held currently? If anybody listening, wants to get involved, wants to, stand in solidarity. I know we have a lot of listeners in the broader New York City area. I apologize, it's loud where I am, sitting on a porch. That was a whole deal. But where can they find more information? Do you have the updated address? Where can they go to stand in solidarity?
No, it was actually on that flyer. I do have the updated address on the flyer. I just can't remember it off the top of my head without looking at the flyer.
There it is. I got it pulled up, Scott. It looks like it's 9501 63rd Drive, Rego Park, New York City.
Correct. And she hasn't confirmed to being a speaker yet, but she has said that she might be able to join us. And I'm really excited about this. This would be Lady Bunny that I'm speaking of. And the reason I'm so excited, I'm hoping that Lady Bunny will speak, is because, as in your previous conversation that you were talking about the trans community, LGBTQ has been highly impacted by suicide. And I cannot think of a better speaker to have on my side than Lady Bunny to speak about this very important issue, along with, our need for universal health care and how much we need to add both of them together. Mental health is so underfunded, and it needs to be part, and is written into the New York Health Act. I wouldn't be amplifying it so hardly if it wasn't.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Scott, obviously, you guys have been going for a long time. You've got your beret on. You guys have been, kind of attacking this corrupt system from every angle, inside and out. You guys have always said that you support the statewide solution as well as the national solution. Could you provide any updates for us while we've got you here on what kind of happenings are going on? Obviously, you've got the demonstration outside Fidelis Care, but could you give us an update on what's going on with the berets?
Yeah, well, there is the documentary you guys showed the clip from that my interview is on, Healing Us. That is, we are soon to release a date that it will be available for the public. And on Tuesday, healinusnetwork.com will be live. What that is an interactive website where we have gotten many endorsers to endorse the film. And we are able to share information and materials with one another. And if you go to healinusnetwork.com, there will be links for the endorsers. So like Healthcare Now from Benjamin Day just confirmed today that he endorses the film as well. We're hoping we're going to get your endorsement too, and then we can put your guys' information on the website as well.
Oh, we will happily grant our rousing endorsement of that for you, Scott,
yes.
Whenever you need.
Yes, yeah. That website will be going up on Tuesday. We'll make sure there's a link to your website on there, and you can go there and see what everybody else is doing as well. And on that will be the newest trailer that Kenny has released, Kenny Ballantyne, the producer, which has Susan Sarandon's narration on it. We are very proud and very grateful for Susan joining us in all of our battles here. And I can't thank her enough. She has been so amazing to not just my family, but the entire movement.
To us as well, Scott. Susan Sarandon was our very first patron supporter. So yeah, we have a lot of love for Susan over here too. And it's so cool that she was able to lend her talents to the film in the way she has been able to.
Yeah, we're super excited to watch that all come to fruition. I remember when Kenny was first talking with us about how it was an idea that he really wanted to kind of get out there and start filming you guys. And now to see how far it's come, to see all the people involved, to see the reach, really exciting, really awesome stuff. Yeah, we really appreciate you coming on the show today, Scott, under some unique circumstances. I'm traveling, so things have been a little chaotic back here, but we're always happy to have you. And I guess was there anything else that we wanted to talk about today while you were on here?
Well, with that being said, I wanted to also thank, the Red Berets in particular. This action is for, not just for Medicare for all, but we're really focusing, as I said, on the New York Health Act, as we really have a viable path to get this legislation passed. And with that being said, that doesn't just say, okay, we've got one state that now has universal health care, right? What this also does is it puts pressure on the other single payer states to get it done. Furthermore, it takes money away from the insurance industry. Could you imagine the hit they're going to take when all of New York City, all of New York is not paying premiums, there's not paying copays, not paying deductibles? That's a huge hit. Furthermore, there's another avenue. The insurance company is not going to say, okay, we lost New York, whatever. They're going to spend millions and millions of dollars in campaign ads against the single payer healthcare system. This does one more horrible side effect. They're not going to take that hit, are they? They never do. They're going to raise the premiums and everything else of their remaining customers to compensate for that, making them look far worse, and that's the way they're going to roll. Right? I mean, is this not true? I mean, I could be wrong. I'm no economist, but we know this is the way it's going to go. If we can get one state passed, 3 states passed, holy hell, we're going to have the same situation that we had in Canada. So where I'm going with that is we have at least 3 Red Berets coming from the West Coast, and I mean one in California and 3 in Washington State, and they are flying all across the country. I've got no money. We all know I've got no money. They're on their cash, and they're taking care of everything so they could come over here and support the New York Health Act. I mean, many of you know that I've got the Solidarity Apple. What that does is it is supposed to symbolize our fight nationally from coast to coast, only connected through the heartbeat. Just like I help out whole Washington, they help me out with New York Health. Mass Care is getting their ground game up and running. I'm going to be helping them out as soon as we can. We've got a ballot initiative that will be starting in Utah. Thank you, Dr. Jarvis, also in the Healing Us documentary. And we combine all of these states and fight together. That's what we need. We need a serious movement. Now, if you don't believe in state-based legislation, I'm sorry, but you can still fight nationally. You don't have to join us, but you don't have to fight us. We can fight together on the national level, and just do not amplify us on the state level. I'm sorry that you won't amplify us, but let's work together where we can and get national single-payer universal health care across the board. And I've actually got a lot of stuff going on. I do now signage, sublimation, and I'm doing this because I can't afford to pay for T-shirts. I make my own T-shirts now for my actions. And we're doing this, if anybody's interested, mostly in, of all things, coffee cup sales. We're selling the coffee cups for like $25 a piece. I think I end up with $7 in profit, which I reinvest to buy T-shirts and sublimation, ink, and vinyl. Just follow me at Scott Desno on Twitter and DM me with your shipping information. We'll work everything out. I'm not a great entrepreneur.
Hey, that's okay, Scott. That's what makes you a better person and a better socialist. So we really appreciate all of the work that you're doing. I apologize. I'm getting we're supposed to be moving out of the Airbnb that we're in really quickly, but I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today, Scott. I putting up with the fact that I'm moving all about.
No, I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you so much. I can't thank you enough for having me on, and hope everybody can join us on April 9th in New York City. No one fights alone, brothers.
Absolutely. And we'll retweet out that flyer that has all the information that everybody needs. So if anybody's watching now and they want a little bit of a refresher, we'll go ahead and retweet that over, or you can follow Scott directly over on Twitter. But great to see you. Heart's always with you, Scott, and keep up the good fight.
Thank you, brothers. Good night.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Scott. We'll see you next time.
Oh boy.
Zach, it looks like we're getting some on the ground reporting from you over here.
Woohoo. Yeah, this is me. I'm live on the ground in Louisville, Kentucky. You've just witnessed a live eviction from the Airbnb I was staying at, but that's okay. We had a little bit of confusion over there, but we're gonna end it out right on top. Yeah, Evan, I'm gonna just be outside, and if we want to read off the rest of the super chats, I'll let you run point on it. But yeah, the next group of people that are staying at this Airbnb got here, so I'm now just trying to like scoot away a little bit and not like get in their shit. But they're being really nice to me, so it's all good. Shout out to those people.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Hopefully you and Mariah are able to find a new crib to crash at tonight. Do you guys have plans for
we'll
that?
be fine. Yeah, although it is crazy because it's March Madness here, so I'm like, fuck, I don't want to, I guess there's like a game in Louisville this week. Because there's like I saw the Princeton band yesterday when I was trying to get dinner. I was like, holy shit! Well, shout out to Princeton though for the massive upset. But anyway, we can fire away at these super chats. Gavin holding down the fort. Shout out to you, Adi.
Yeah, thanks so much for the $10, Adi. Really appreciate that, man. It is much more effective to tackle it at a state level. I'm helping out with research for a legislation to add more state tax brackets to increase tax credit for healthcare. Even Republican senators are for it. Well, shout out to you, Adi. And yeah, I think that there's a lot of value to the state by state local approach for universal healthcare legislation. Obviously, when we had Bernie Sanders, who was kind of leading the movement for Medicare for all at a nationwide level, that was great. But since his campaign ended, unfortunately, a lot of that nationwide momentum sort of evaporated. And if you know anything about organizing, it's a lot easier to organize locally with people that are actually in your community on the ground versus people across the country. So if you're an activist trying to fight for single payer, it really is easier and more feasible to do it in your local community, the state that you live in. It's still massively hard. It's still a huge uphill battle, and they put a bunch of super anti-democratic roadblocks in the way, but it's going to be a lot easier to do it on a state-by-state level in the absence of a big nationwide movement like we had while Bernie was running. So, hopefully there is another leader like Bernie Sanders who can reignite that spark on a nationwide level. But in the meantime, for the folks that, aren't going to stop fighting just because of the absence of someone like that, or a, campaign or a broader movement, yeah, the local fight is where it's at. That's why whole Washington and CalCare and New York Health Act folks are all, fighting to do just that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see it across the board, too. Obviously, Medicare for all is a primary issue that we focus on at the Vanguard. But one of the other things that we feel really strongly about is affordable housing. And I was actually just chatting with my sister the other day. Her boss was giving a speech at Harvard about tenant organizations. And who was the primary example of success? KC Tenants, baby. They just got $20 million to set aside for affordable housing. They also made sure that every evicted renter in the city now has access to attorneys. There, just to give another example of a different political issue and how much success you can have at the local level, particularly in these kinds of areas. So shout out to you, Adi. Always great to see you. And I totally agree that it's very effective to tackle at the state level, although I support efforts all across the board, inside and out, as we say.
100%. Yeah. Shout out to you, Audie. Really, really appreciate the super chats today, man. It's great to hear from you. And thank you so much, Tony, for the 199. You guys see the Humanist Report respond to this. Yeah. We were just talking a little bit about the Humanist Report's response to Anna Kasparian. So we did get into that. Really, really appreciate the super chat though, Tony.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to you, Tony. And Gavin, I'm going to switch back to calling from my phone just while we round out these super chats, because I have to leave this Airbnb really quickly, but I'll be back in
Oh, no problem. No
Sorry,
problem.
Guys.
Yeah, Zach will be right back, everyone. But yeah, shout out to you, Tony. Thanks so much. And thank you also, Kevin, for the 199. I know a lot of college women who secretly hate it. Are you talking about the birthing person thing, Kevin? Because I'm not exactly sure what the context of your super chat was. I'm guessing you're talking about the birthing people language. But let me know in chat what you're referencing here. But thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate that, man. And also thank you so much, Lloyd, for the $9.99. Really appreciate that, man. That's super generous. Keep it up, guys. Congrats on your viral moment. It was everywhere. So happy and proud. Well, really, it was Brianna's viral moment. We just, happened to post it. It could have been anyone that posted that, but it was pretty cool being linked in, major publications like the Washington Post, and, having so many people pay attention to something that we clipped and posted and put out there. So yeah, it definitely was really cool to see that. We gained a decent amount of Twitter followers from that. By the way, everyone make sure to subscribe, or rather follow us on Twitter. I was just saying we gained some followers over there after that little clip went viral, but make sure to follow us. The link's in the description. Either way, thank you so much, Lloyd. Really, really appreciate that. And you back, Zach?
Hey, what's up, guys? Yeah, I'm back. I'm gonna go camera free, but what's up, everybody?
Yeah. Anyway, I was just saying thanks to Lloyd for the super chat. That's really kind of you, and really appreciate you tuning in today, man.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's always funny when you are responsible for a semi-viral moment. I mean, that shit went dumb crazy on the internet. So really stoked about that. And shout out to you, Lloyd, longtime listener. Really appreciate seeing you in the chat.
Absolutely. Also, speaking of that moment, Zach, did you get a chance to check out Brianna giving us a quick shout out this morning on Rising?
Yeah, I did see that on the Trump AI little segment that they did. Her and Robbie shouting us out for helping boost their show's profile for sure.
Yeah, let's quickly play that in case any of you guys missed it. Shout out to Bree for mentioning us on Rising.
Yes, clip Rising videos for TikTok.
Yeah.
These are theme music underneath. Let's get the most advantage out of this
Yes,
program.
we leave
before
this to
it's
you,
ended.
our fans, people watching, people who sometimes people just watching us clip things, and the infamous Bethany Mando clip, which now everyone and their grandmothers has seen, was just some people who watch the show regularly who clipped it, and it was seen by millions of
Yes,
people.
shout out to the boys at the Vanguard who do a lot of great coverage of our coverage here at Rising. We'll be back next.
Ouch,
I thought
Robbie,
that
way
was
to soft sell us. Just some regular guys that watch our show. Not like we haven't annihilated your arguments 10 million times, but that's okay. I get it. He had to big time us.
Yeah, I thought that was funny too. But yeah, pretty cool.
Just some boys you follow on Twitter.
Yeah, Robbie follows us. We honestly, I would be down to try to get him on the show. That would be a fun conversation.
Yeah, I worry that we burned the bridge just by savagely breaking down his arguments too badly, but I don't know.
I feel like he'd be down for a discussion.
He went on Chapo, which is just a ginormous podcast compared to us, but it's not like they weren't combative with each other.
Right. And shout out to you, Neo's algorithm. Shout out to Jackie at Chaotic Leftist. Yeah, we threw Jackie's tweet up on screen about the Young Turfs earlier in the show. So yeah, shout out to Jackie. She's a great Twitter follow.
Oh yeah, shout out to you, and shout out to Jackie.
And thank you so much, Jane, for the $2. Norm Finkelstein won't say birthing person. All right. Thanks for letting us know, Jane.
Yeah, there was that really cringy kind of exchange that he had between Brianna Joy Gray, where he was like trying to take the moral stand of like not being woke, and like I don't know, it was a real boomer take from old Norm. Norm's done a lot of great work. I don't mean to diminish the guy, but that was a bad take. Like I just straight up don't agree with him.
Yeah, I don't agree with everything from him either, but shout out to you, Jane. Thanks for letting us know. And thank you, Ebel1911 for the $5. Sorry, guys, but the trans issue is definitely tilting in the other direction now. I suspect we'll see more turfs coming out over the next couple of years. Well, the reason why, if it is in fact tilting in the direction of the turfs, the reason why is because of the relentless propaganda of the right wing demonizing the trans community and ginning up a moral panic surrounding their very existence. Does the left need to adequately counter that propaganda with a pro-trans counter message? Absolutely it does. I mean, that's part of what we're doing here. We try to give the other arguments and try to push back on some of this propaganda. But thanks for the super chat, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of irrelevant for me, right? Like, I don't care how popular it is. I know this is the correct and moral position. We're going to stand up for all of our homies, be they trans, be they non-binary, be anybody, you know what I'm saying? So I don't really care if the tide turns. That just means we need to do a better job winning hearts and minds. I mean, obviously I care the outcome is different if you have more fucking open turfs making the lives of trans people harder. But as far as my commitment to the cause, it doesn't dissuade me. It's not something that you can take off or turn off or change. So, these homies are going to be battling this, and we're going to be battling right alongside them.
Absolutely. So yeah, shout out to you, man. Appreciate the super chat. Thank you also, Carissa, for the $10. There's a good convo between Abby Martin, Katie Halper, Brianna Joy Gray, and Rania Kalik on Rising from back in the day, where I think Rania suggests weight classes for all sports over women versus men. Yeah, I kind of remember that conversation. They tried to do like that one panel style show where it was kind of like The View, but the progressive version of The View. That was pretty cool. Interesting. Yeah. Like I said, I don't know enough about athletics to really have much of an interesting opinion on this or much of an informed opinion on it. But that definitely might be a real solution that should be considered: weight classes versus, gender segregation.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much I love that idea, just because I think it would fuck up a lot of professional sports and sports in general, right? Like, should Kobe not be able to play on the same team as Shaq because Shaq weighs 2 times what Kobe weighed? Like, maybe that's a bad example, but I'm just trying to think of somebody with a massive amount of size, like Shaquille O'Neal, still playing basketball, still playing the same sport, still competing at a high level. So I honestly, and when you go to like younger sports or whatever, like how much does golf really impact based on your weight, right? Or something, like not all sports are combat sports. Not all sports are, physical competitions. It really, I think it really just depends. And my position is always that we should just err on the side of inclusion. And if you want to have like your narrow, like fucking competitive professional sports, then that's fine. But when we're talking about anything that involves like public funding, then I think we should just err on the side of inclusion.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right to me. But shout out to you, Carissa. Really appreciate that generous super chat. And thank you for bringing that to our attention. Got a couple more maybe. Also, Zach, I haven't seen any super chats from you. I just looked back through our history in chat, and I didn't see any super chats you sent in. So I guess let us know what you sent if it didn't go through. Sorry about that, but I'm not seeing anything from you, bro.
Yeah, I can't say for sure. I'm calling from my phone, so I don't see any of the super chats, but I believe you.
And shout out to Adi once again for the $2. Thanks so much, Adi. What did I miss? You were viral. Details, please. Well, again, we weren't really viral. Brianna Joy Gray hella went viral, and her guest on Rising, Bethany Mandel. But Adi, if you follow us on Twitter, you might have seen I posted this tweet of a clip from Rising, and it went mega viral. The clip has been viewed over 10 million times. It was on MSNBC, The Daily Show, was, written about in the Washington Post. Every YouTube channel covered this clip where Brianna Joy Gray basically breaks the brain of this anti-woke writer named Bethany Mandel by asking her to define the term woke, and Bethany essentially can't define it. But yeah, it went really viral. I'm sure you've probably seen it floating around, and technically we were the account on Twitter that clipped that and put it out there, which made it go so viral. But yeah, that's what happened, Dottie.
And shout out to Carolina Boy, the super chatter that told us to cut that clip. What a real one.
Yeah, absolutely. And also Zach said the young turd ticklers. LOL. Well, shout out to you, man. I'm not sure why we didn't get that super chat, why it didn't go through, but we really appreciate you, bro.
Yeah, sorry about that, man. Sometimes YouTube's be fucking with us, but yeah, shout out to you. And yeah, look, the Young Turks, not a fucking publication or media outlet that I have a lot of respect for. I think they've gone massively downhill over the last fucking 5 or 6 years, and really not ever been the same since the first Bernie run, when everybody first started to really pay attention to them, at least me.
Yeah, so shout out to you, bro. I'm not sure why your super chats didn't go through, but at least we were able to react to them. Either way, I think that just about wraps it up. I know you're probably anxious to figure out what the hell you and Mariah are going to do, so we'll probably wrap this up. But appreciate you all for tuning in. Make sure to hit that like button on your way out. And unless there's anything else you wanted to talk about, Zach, we can probably shout out the patrons.
Yeah, sorry about the fucking craziness, guys. Being on the road and doing the podcast sometimes has some hiccups, but I feel like we put out a banger anyway. Today was a good show. We got everything that we wanted to covered. Appreciate you guys for bearing with me. Yeah, I am excited to get to the hotel. I did book one while we were on air, so nobody has to worry. Like, we're straight. And shout out to the patrons, of course. You're all comrades in our heart, but thank you extra to the lovely fuckers that keep the lights on at the Casa del Vanguard.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for the support. The links in the description. Hit that up if you enjoy our show and want to support us. It really truly helps out. It makes what we do possible. Even just like $5 a month goes a really long way. So if you want to support the show, hit up that link in the description. You can have your own name up there on the shout out screen. I thought today was a great episode too, despite Zach's roving status and his eviction that occurred live on air. I think we had a great show today. And if you're available, I'm definitely down to go live again tomorrow, Zach.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'll holler at you as soon as we get where we're going and get everything fixed up and right as rain. And shout out to Scott Desnoyers for all the hard work he's doing over there. April 9th, protesting outside of Fidelis Care.
Yeah, and it looks like Zach might be encountering.
If you're around Queens, definitely check that out.
Yeah, 100%. And if you got to go, Zach, that's cool. There's one more super chat from Adi. Thank you, Adi. I think that even before talking about sports or talking about inclusion, we, as the left, should be able to talk to the other side and better explain why trans X are X. That's the heart of the problem. Like why trans women are women or why trans men are men? Is that what you're talking about, Adi? Do you think that's what Adi's getting at, Zach?
That's how I read it, and how we need to talk about how, even though you obviously, like you used to say all the time, like, do you think a trans woman will never tell you that her body is biologically different than a cis woman? That's why she has to take a fuck ton of medication. Like, these people are intimately aware of the fact that there are biological differences between them. That just doesn't invalidate their womanhood, or it doesn't invalidate your manhood, right? You are who you fucking want to be, right? And I thought that was something that we settled like 100 fucking years ago, but I guess not.
Yeah, shout out to you, Adi. I totally agree with that. So thank you so much for the super chats today, man. Really appreciate that, and glad you enjoyed the show. Make sure to hit that notification bell, everyone, so you don't miss tomorrow's live stream. Assuming Zach's available to go live, we'll be right back at it.
Absolutely. Cheers, guys. See ya when I see ya.